Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. In this video, we are going to see how indexing is done in list. So let us see how indexing can be taken care of in list. There can be two types of indexing in Python list. The first one is the positive indexing. Let us suppose we have a list which have 5 elements in it, namely 10, 20, 30, 40 and 50. We can clearly see that the length of the list is 5. So the indexing, which is the positive indexing, is done as follows. The indexing will start at 0 and will go till length minus 1, that is 0, 1, 2, 3 and 4. And in order to retrieve the element on the basis of the index, we can use this indexings right now. So you can see on your screen that we have used length in square brackets 0, which is the first index, so that should return the element number 10. L in square bracket we have taken index number 1. So index number 1 should return the element 20. And we have also taken the index as 100, which is clearly not present in our list. So let us see what we are going to get through this particular example. So here we have a list with 5 elements, right? And we want to print the first element that of this particular list. So I will be taking as the index 0. Let us run the code. And you can see that 10 is printed on your screen. Similarly, we will be printing all the elements of the list one by one. Element second with index 1, 2, 3 and one more with 4, and that should evidently print each and every element of my list. So you can see that elements from 10 to 50 is been printed. Now let us see if I pass an index which is not available in my list. What happens? So here Python will definitely tell you that there is an index error, list index out of range. That means in order to access your elements through indexing, you should know how many indexes are present in your list. Otherwise, there will be an index error raised. The second type of indexing in Python is the negative indexing. Yes, the index can be negative. In this example also, there are 5 elements, right? Clearly the length is 5 and the negative indexing is done as follows. It starts from the right hand side and goes till the left. So the last element will be indexed as -1, then -2, -3, -4 and -5 respectively. So the negative indexing starts from the right hand side having -1 as the index of the last element, right? So let us see how negative indexing works in Python. So let us make each and every index over here as negative, right? And see what will happen. If I run the code as the first element where I have taken the index as -1, I got the element 50. For value -2, I got the second last element, and then with the value -5, I got the first element. That is, 5 is the length of the list, and with -5, I got the first element of my list, and with -1, I got the last element of my list. So that is how negative indexing works in Python. The third type of indexing is the indexing in the nested list. So here on your screen, I have taken a nested list. Yes, a list inside a list is known as a nested list. So clearly you can see that this is a list which is having the first element as 10, second element as 20, the third element is in turn a list which is having two elements 30 and 40. The third list is a nested list in itself which have 50 and 60 as its first element as a list and 70 as its second element, right? So let us see how this type of indexing works, right? So if I took list 1, the name of my list, and index as 0, I should clearly get the first element. If I take list 1 with 1 as my index, I should clearly get the second element. If I take 2, it should return a complete list, which is the third element of my list. And if I take list as the third index, that is the last index of my list, I should get the complete list like this. Let us see how it's worked. Here I will be entering a nested list, which is 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, which is a list, and comma 70, and close the list. So clearly, if I will be printing over here list 0, I should get 10 as my output. If I print list with index 1, I should get 20 as my output. If I print list with index 2, I should get the complete list 30, 40. And if I print the list with index 3, then I should get the last nested list as my output. So let us see whether this happens or not. So yes, you can see that 10, 20, the elements of my list are printed as it is, right? So that is how we will be actually accessing our list when it is nested. We can also access the inner element of the nested list. For that, we shall be using the two-dimensional nature of indexing, right? So if we print list 1, talking about the second index, that is 0, 1 and 2. So the second index is of 30, 40, right? And if I talk about the next bracket, they will be sharing the first element. The indexing is by default starting from 0. So that 0 will belong to this 30 and this 1 will belong to this 40. So here I am talking about the element at second index actually. So 0, 1, 2. So this is the element at the second index, and 0 that refers to 30 and 1 that refers to 40. Similarly, if I will be taking 3 in my first bracket, that will correspond to the 0, 1, 2, the element at the third index of my list, that is this complete nested list. And if I talk about 0, that should represent the first element, that is 50 and 60. In turn, if I want to retrieve 50 alone or 60 alone, I can use a third bracket, and which will be representing as 3, that is the third element of my list, 0, that will be the first element of that particular list, that is 50, 60. And if I talk about 1, so that will be 0 and 1. So I should get 60 over here. Let us see how it works. So here, if I want to print the element that is 0, 1, 2 at the second index, right? So I should take 2 as in my first square bracket, and if I want to retrieve 30, the value that will be the first element of this particular element, right? So that will be like this. Print. If I want to print 40 also, so I will be taking the second element, that is 0, 1, the second element, square bracket, and then I shall be taking the first index, that is 0 and 1, the 1 over here. So this will be printing 30 and 40 respectively. Let us see. Yes, you can see that 30 and 40 is been now printed. Now talking about this particular portion. So let me print list, right? Along with this, I am talking about the first element of my third list, right? Let us see what this will be printing. So I am talking about the third element, and the first element of the third element is a list. So let us get 50 and 60 as a list over here. So here we got 50 and 60 as a list, right? Similarly, if I take 1 over here, I should get 70. and yes, I got 70. Now, if you want to print individual values, either 50 or 60, at that point of time, you have to take 0 over here because you're referring the first element of this list. And in another bracket, you can give 0 for 50, right? And if I copy it again, and in place of 0, if I do 1, then I will be getting 60 over here. So this will print 50 because this is the third element, 0 for the first element and 0 for the first element, that is this one. And if I took 1, that should print 60. Let us see. And yes, I got 50 and 60 respectively over here. So that is how we have seen that how we can do indexing in a normal list or in a nested list as well. I hope you got some useful information through this video. And for knowing more about list and more about Python, stay tuned to my channel. Thank you.